Hello, children. Now, if you have been brought up in a Christian household and your mummy and daddy are Christians, they will have told you that the book that they live by is called the Bible. And the Bible contains an awful lot of very important stories that tell your mummy and daddy how to live their lives. Now, what people have done, because the Bible is a very big book and it has got lots of big words and it's very difficult for small children to understand. So what people have done, out of the kindness of their hearts, is taken the stories in the Bible and they've written them into small little stories such as this one, about a wise man called Moses, who has played a very, very important role in the history of the Bible. So I'm going to read the story to you, so please pay attention. This is the story about Moses and the princess. Moses and the princess. Miriam smiled at her new baby brother. "He's very special, isn't he, Mummy?" she said. "Very special," said her mother. "We must both take very good care of him." There was a problem. Miriam and her family were Israelites. Long ago, the Israelites had been invited to live in Egypt. Now, there were lots of them, and the Egyptians were afraid of them. They made them work as slaves. The king had made a law that all Israelite boys must be thrown into the river. His soldiers often came looking. Miriam's mother made a basket from reeds. She covered it with waterproof tar. She put the baby in the basket and went down to the river. She hid her baby in his little basket among the reeds. Miriam hid close by to watch what would happen. The daughter of the king of Egypt came down to the river to bathe. Her servant stood on the bank. Suddenly the princess saw the basket. "Please fetch that for me," she said. "I want to know what's inside." When the princess lifted the lid, she saw the baby boy. "Poor little thing, he's crying," she said. "He's an Israelite baby. Someone wants to keep him safe. I'd like to keep him." Miriam stepped forward. She spoke up bravely. "If you like, I can find an Israelite woman to take care of him for you." "Yes, please," replied the princess. Miriam ran home. "Mummy," she cried, "come quickly. The princess found our baby. She wants to keep him. She needs someone to look after him." The two hurried back as fast as they could. The princess gave the mother her own baby. "Please look after him for me," she said. "I will pay you. When the boy is old enough, he will come and live at the palace." "His name," began the mother. "Oh yes, what shall I call him?" said the princess. "I know. Moses." Moses grew up to be a prince. He lived among the Egyptians. He was rich and powerful, but he knew he was really an Israelite. He was very angry at the way his people were treated. That got him into trouble, and he had to run away. Yeah, well, children, there's something they're not saying here in this book, and I think it is important that you realize this. You know, see, he didn't just get into any old trouble. No, he didn't. He actually murdered somebody. And I don't know whether you understand what murder is, but basically he hit somebody over the head until his brain splattered all over the floor. And it was a terrible mess, and everybody was crying and everybody was sad, and then he had to run away, because he was a murderer. But let's carry on with the story. In the faraway desert, Moses became a shepherd. One day he saw a strange sight. A bush was on fire, but none of it was really burning. The fire was a sign that God was there. Yeah, you see, Moses sees something that he can't explain and he immediately says, "Oh, it must be God who's there." You know, that's what a lot of people do. When they see something they don't understand, they invent an explanation. And God spoke to Moses. Yes, Moses was hearing voices. Now, there are still people in this day and age who hear voices. They usually get locked up in lunatic asylums. But they didn't have lunatic asylums in those days, so Moses carried on regardless. And the voices in his head said, "I want you to rescue my people. Tell the king of Egypt to let them go free." Moses went and asked his brother, Aaron, to help him. Together they went to see the king of Egypt. "If you don't let our people go, God will send all sorts of trouble," they pleaded. "No," said the king. "No, no, 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 no." There was one disaster after another. frogs hopping everywhere, flies buzzing everywhere, locusts chewing everywhere. Now, children, you have to understand that these things are not just annoying, but they cause real misery. They cause real misery. The frogs cause diseases, the flies buzzing everywhere make everything inedible. People are hungry, people are suffering, locusts chewing everywhere so that, all the crops will be destroyed. People will be dying. Yes. The king would not change his mind. Of course he wouldn't. The troubles got worse. Yes. Now that's what it says here in this book. The troubles got worse. And that's all it says here. Because the people who wrote this book, they obviously reckon that small children like yourselves listening to the story can't handle the truth or what it really says in the Bible. You know what it really says in the Bible? What it really says in the Bible is that for all the families in Egypt, even those families who have absolutely nothing to do with Pharaoh, that's the name of the king, Pharaoh, they have absolutely nothing to do with Pharaoh. But you know what? God made it so that of all the people in Egypt who weren't Israelites like Moses and his family and his people, and in all those people, the firstborn boy was going to die that night. So imagine all those mummies and daddies, and the brothers and sisters crying their little eyes out, being so sad. But, God thought that was a good idea to murder all those little people who had absolutely nothing to do with the reason why the Israelites were in Egypt, were completely innocent, and the only person who actually needed their head examined was the Pharaoh. But God didn't stand on such distinctions. He wouldn't be too bothered if he just killed everybody, because that is what God is like, apparently, according to the Bible. But I'm digressing. The king did change his mind after that. Yeah, can you imagine that? Moses led his people out of Egypt, away from the cruel king. The other thing it doesn't say, I'll get back to that later. Suddenly, the king changed his mind again. Yeah, he let them go and they were just on their way, and he changed his mind again. And he said, hurry, he told his army. Drive your chariots as fast as you can and go and get them back. Now, all he wanted was for those people to come back again to Egypt. The people saw the army behind them. They saw a sea in front of them. And Moses lifted his stick, and God made a path for them through the sea. Yes, according to the Bible. Safe on the other side, Miriam danced and played a tambourine. Oh, I see, they just missed out a little bit again. You see, what happened was that all the Israelites went across the sea, according to the story in the Bible, and as the Pharaoh's army followed them, God made the sea close over them. So they all drowned. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to drown? Oh, it would absolutely be horrible. There'd be water going into your lungs, and you'll be in a terrible pain, and you'll be so scared. But, rather than just closing the sea after the Israelites and just before Pharaoh's army could make it into the sea, God waited until they were all there so he could kill all of them. Because that is what God's really like. He likes to kill people. The more, the merrier. So Miriam, the lovely girl that she is, was dancing and playing the tambourine after seeing all the bloated corpses of the Pharaoh's army floating in the sea. God has saved us, she sang, and everyone joined in because they were so happy. Now that's where this book ends. See, that's the last page of the book. But children, you know what happened next? I would like you to go and look up a map of the Middle East. And you will find Egypt and you'll find Israel. And you will see how far apart these two places are. Now they aren't that far apart. It is, of course, a long way to walk from Egypt to Israel. I will not deny that, children. But it should take somebody, maybe at most, a couple of weeks. Instead, it took Moses, because Moses was dreadfully incompetent and was no good at reading maps, and, like every male, was just too proud to ask for the way. And so they wandered about aimlessly 40 years in the desert. And you know what, children? The Israelites were so stupid that for all those 40 years they stuck by him. Now isn't that a crazy story, if ever you've heard one? That's one of the stories in the Bible. Bless you and good night.